Well, let's go ahead and go live, and Mayor, we'll just start with your opening comments.
Okay, I'd just like to welcome everybody to our neighborhood improvement and quarter cent fire sales tax town hall meeting. I know that there are a lot of residents interested and want more information on what this is all about. We have our staff, Mr. Matt Zimmerman here, who's been negotiating between the Hazelwood City Council and the Robertson Fire Protection District for some time to come with some agreement on how to solve this problem. This neighborhood improvement district and quarter cent sales tax is only a temporary thing until we come to the solution that we can negotiate with down the road with Robertson Fire Department, or Robertson Fire District. But I'm sure that with what we see on Facebook, that we see a lot of questions that need to be answered, and hopefully we can do answer those questions for the public tonight, and let everybody know what this is all about. So we'll go ahead and get started with the town hall meeting tonight, and appreciate everybody taking the time to join in, and look forward to reviewing the comments and the surveys after this meeting.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor. We appreciate those comments, and I wholeheartedly agree with the mayor and his comments. This is a great opportunity to get your questions answered, and as well as get your feedback. We are going to allow for question and answer at the end of this presentation, as well as time for comments. So you will be submitting your comments through your online portal or your questions, and we'll get to as many questions and comments as we can within the allotted time frame. So we ask for your patience. We do have a bit of a presentation for you. We understand, as the mayor said, that this is a very complicated issue, and we wanted to sort of explain exactly what these tax questions are about, and we want to explain why the city is taking a look at asking the voters to consider these considerations. So next slide, please, Becky. So many of you may or may not know, but the city has had some very considerable budget problems for a number of years. We've been trying to address them over time. We have done so through a combination of raising money and reducing services. We started to hit a real crunch this year with the COVID-19 and the anticipated significant reduction in revenues. And so we held a series of budget public meetings. And then we got feedback, and based on that feedback, the city council ultimately adopted a budget that included an assumption that revenues were going to be down 5.7 million due to the pandemic. And in response to that, the city began to cut services. So we closed Civic Center East. We are reducing our street maintenance and snow plowing times, and eliminating our non-revenue park programs. We eliminated a number of popular programs like leaf collection in the fall and limb collection in the spring. In addition, we eliminated 11 unfilled positions, and we also laid off 3 full-time and 8 part-time employees. The budget includes no money for raises this year. There is a hiring freeze. And lastly, as a result of COVID and the lost revenue, most of our employees were furloughed 1 day a week. We also had a handful of employees that were furloughed entirely until the start of the fiscal year on July 1. But the non-emergency personnel were all furloughed 1 day a week and took a 20% pay cut for for a minimum of 10 weeks. We also have suspended our capital projects and repairs as we go into the next fiscal year, and we are monitoring how our capital sales tax is coming in to see what projects we're going to be able to do. Next slide, please, Becky. So how did we get into this situation? Obviously, our budget is very significant. We have a large deficit. Well, part of the problem is the difference between what Hazelwood collects and what they pay. So on your tax bill, you will see that the city charges for property tax 92 cents per $100 of assessed property value. At the same time, we pay Robertson $2.40 per 100, or Flores and Valley $1.62. So you can see very quickly the problem with that is when for every dollar of additional assessed valuation that we add through property growth, through property assessment growth, or through new development, we're actually losing money. And so the city has had to take steps to address that. So that becomes very difficult for us to maintain that. So one of the things the city has been doing very aggressively since the Ford plant closed in 2008, next slide please, is what we call our but-for use of tax abatement. This tax abatement has been very successful in bringing new projects to our town. Everyone has seen the new industrial warehouses where the Ford plant used to be. We have new warehouses in Hazelwood Logistics Center at the south end off of Lindbergh. New industrial park going in behind the mall. We've seen continued growth in the Park 370 industrial park, which is a little to the to the side of the mall. And so we do that not mainly for job growth, but also we do that for the ability to continue to enhance our funding sources. So we're getting more jobs, getting more revenues, because the city doesn't just get property tax, but we get sales taxes, we get utility taxes, we get business license fees. And so we're trying to enhance the city's budget, protect all of those services where we can by bringing in businesses that are going to bring in large job growth and other types of revenues in addition to property tax. In addition, we use tax abatement under what they call under the state law, the but-for test. If it weren't for the tax abatement, those projects would not come, or if you will, but for the tax abatement, those projects would not come. And so they're also used to offset non-normal costs of development. Many of these tax abatements or additional tax places like a CID, like a TDD, they are used as a self-imposed tax on each of those projects that they then use to pay for projects that are above and beyond what we would call normal costs. Again, using the mall as an example, that mall wouldn't have been built if you didn't have those large off-ramps coming in off of Missouri 370, and without the two bridges that go over the highway. Those are not normal costs, those are very expensive costs. And so by using TDD, we paid for those. By using tax abatement, that was able to spur the development of the mall. And then, as I stated earlier, that the city also uses this for job creation. We've been very, very successful with our job creation. We have added well over 2,000 jobs since 2008 when the Ford plant closed with all of those facilities. We also require in order for you to get tax abatement or other economic development efforts like TDD, like CID, like a loan, we require that you pay at least 80% of the county average wages. County's average wages are about $46,000, so it'd be about $38,500 a year is the minimum average pay that a business has to have in order to get these tax abatements or to get these loans. The city also makes sure that the loans are both insured and secured so that we get paid back if a company defaults. We have had two since 2008, and in both cases, the city was paid back with interest on the loans that we gave, because we were able to go to the security firm, usually a bank, and say, hey, this has to be paid, since a couple of these businesses went bankrupt. And then the third reason why we look at tax abatement is not only job growth and looking at other revenues coming in, but quite frankly, the city would start to lose money, which means we'd be losing services because of the disequity, as we call it, between what we collect in property taxes and what we have to pay out in property taxes. With tax abatement, we're able to eliminate that. But because we've had so much success, we are doing that less and less. So as new projects have come in, starting in 2015, we're giving less tax abatement. So while they may get 100% tax abatement, then they're paying taxes back through what we call a payment in lieu of taxes, or a pilot payment, and they are providing that money back to all of the taxing districts. And And depending on the size of the project and how much demand Hazelwood is in, and we're a high demand community, we have been able to reduce the amount of the tax abatements that have been going on. So we are definitely watching this. We're trying to keep our economy growing. We're trying to bring jobs. We're also trying to make sure that we take care of money come back into the community through these pilot payments. So that's how we got here. This is how the city makes the decisions that it makes. So what do we have on the ballot? First of all, next slide, please, Becky. We have Proposition A. This would be to increase the sales tax rate by another 1/4% from a 1/4 cent to a 1/2 cent. And this is for fire services. This is what we call the fire service sales tax. This is a statutory or state law tax that is allowed, that may only be used to provide fire services in the community. The law was passed in 2013 that allowed the 1/4 cent, and the voters approved in 2014 to add that. The General Assembly then increased that rate in 2019 to a 1/2 cent, and we're asking the voters to increase it to a 1/2 cent. We estimate that will bring in about $780,000 a year. Again, that is limited to being used for providing fire services within Hazelwood. And that is Proposition A. Next, we have Proposition F. This is the more complicated of the one. And what Proposition F would be to create what we call a neighborhood improvement district, or a NID, overlay within the Robertson service area. The proposed NID rate would be $1.37 for $100 assessed valuation, which would mean for a home that is valued at $100,000, that would be about $22 a month. If you want to see how that gets calculated, please go to the city's website, www.hazelwoodmo.org/fire service. And you can see how those get calculated. You can also contact City Hall, and we'd be happy to if you gave us your not your tax bill, but the amount on your tax bill of your assessed valuation, we could help calculate that for you. So what exactly is a NID? And like I said, NID is a tax overlay that can only be used for specific purposes. In this particular case, the money from the NID can only be used to pay for the city's costs that we pay to Robertson. It cannot be used for any other purpose. And the way that this is calculated is the city says, this is how much it would cost the city if the city fire department were providing service. And then this is the amount that we are paying Robertson. And so the NID makes up the difference between what it would cost the city to serve that area and the amount that we pay Robertson to serve that area. And that calculation is done every year. We would calculate that. We would divide it over the total assessed valuation of that area. And then that's how we would figure out the rate. So the rate for the first year is $1.37. That rate cannot change more than 25% over the 20-year term of the NID. So it's a fairly stable rate. If in the event that some other arrangement is made with Robertson and other fire departments in terms of fire service, then it automatically, by law, goes away because we're no longer paying the difference, and that's the purpose of the NID. So next slide, please. I'm sorry, excuse me, I already went through that. I'm probably going too fast, but next slide, please. So as you can see, again, as we talked about this, the rate the city has is 92 cents. For residential properties, the city pays $2.40. For commercial properties, it's actually a little bit higher. It's 92 cents versus $2.49. And so the city looks at this, looks at total assessed valuation, and has determined that a fairly significant portion of this NID would be paid by businesses, because much of the Robertson service area, as we call it, includes a lot of businesses and a lot of industrial parks. This is not subject to tax abatement, so all businesses would be responsible for paying this fee. So that's one of the reasons why we looked at NID, was that we thought that it would have less of an impact on residents and more of an impact on business. That's one of the reasons why we thought this might be an equitable way, a fair way for paying this. Next slide, please. So the NID levy would appear on the upcoming tax bill, meaning that it would be due by December 31st, 2020. We estimate that or actually we know that would bring in a little over $2,576,000 per year, which is the difference between what the Hazelwood Fire Department would cost to provide service in the Robertson service area and what we're paying Robertson. That's the difference between those costs. By adding the $1.37 per 100, that would increase the tax rate by about 14.5%. Next slide, please. So we have had a lot of questions, a lot of comments, a lot of concerns about the ballot. And those comments are correct. The ballot does say $1.73. Unfortunately, a former city employee submitted the incorrect language to the county. So when the county says, this is the language we have, they are correct. That is what the city submitted. However, the NID resolution that the city council adopted was $1.37. And by law, we have to follow the resolution, not the language on the ballot. So the most we can collect this year is $1.37. And I would encourage people to go to the city's website. Again, that's www.hazelwoodmo.org/fire service, and you'll see the actual resolution on our website. So you can see that is actually the rate that is set is $1.37. We apologize for the error. We wish that it hadn't happened, but I can assure you, and you can see for yourself on our website, the rate really is $1.37, not $1.73. Next slide, please. So again, what we have here is two referendums. Proposition A would increase the fire sales tax by another 0.25%, and Proposition F, which would be creating a neighborhood improvement district in the Robertson service area to close the funding gap, allow the city to help balance its budget. The reason for this is not only because we have some significant budget problems. We've had to cut budget, we've had to cut services, we've had to cut positions, we've had to cut people. This is our way of stabilizing our budget. The city council feels that this is the most equitable solution because the area served by Robertson, they have voted for the tax increases. Every one of the tax rates in Robertson were clearly approved by the voters. But the cost to the overall city has gone up significantly over time, and the city no longer has other revenues sufficient to cover those increasing costs that the voters have voted for, but are not paying. This is a way for that area then to start paying for the tax increases that they have previously approved. We also see it as an equity issue because everybody in Hazelwood is paying this difference. So everyone in Hazelwood is paying it through higher taxes. The city's had to raise its tax rates since 1997 when the contract went into effect. The city has had to do reduced services, especially a lot of our outside revenue, our big revenue sources have gone away. When the Ford plant left, $3 million went out the door back in 2008. We've been supplementing that. We've been trying to continue to balance our budget. Unfortunately, we're no longer able to continually balance our budget. So we've been relying on temporarily vacant positions. We've been relying on one-time revenues, and we're still not balancing our budget, but we've been able to slowly lose money. We're starting to lose money more quickly now. And so we see this as a way for those who voted for it to be able to pay some of the taxes they voted for. And we see this as a way of where all those areas that are also having higher taxes and lesser services, but never had a chance to vote on these, they're not impacted by all of these as much because the area in question is paying directly for their fire service from Robertson. And lastly, we understand that the residents in the Robertson service area really like their fire service. They really like their fire department. We do. We've heard that comment. And we support that. Robertson provides very good service. Hazelwood provides very good service. We're comfortable with that. This is a way of balancing or helping to balance the budget, and this is a way allowing the residents over there to continue to receive services from Robertson. And that's what our goal is. That's why the city picked the NID. I know it was on the ballot back in April of 2019, but as the problem has gotten significantly worse in the last 15 months, and we were looking for solutions, we kind of came back to the same conclusion that this was the most equitable decision. So thank you very much for your patience. I know I said a lot of things. I know I talked very detailed, very loud, very fast. I apologize. It's just who I am. Any of you who have participated in budget meetings before, come to city council meetings, know that I often talk that way. But we really wanted to get the information out. We've had a lot of really good questions that we felt really needed to be answered, and we wanted to take this time to do so. But we also wanted to make sure that we left plenty of time for questions, which we will answer to the best of our ability, and to allow time for comments. If you just have a comment, please go ahead and type that in. You can go to the comment box and type in your question or your comment. We will read the question, we will read the comment out loud so everybody can hear that. And we are going to turn it back over to you, Becky, to start looking at questions and comments and leave you to raise those questions or comments. Thank you.
All right, so we'll go ahead. As Matt said, you can submit your questions and comments to us in the Q&A function of the Zoom window, and we'll do our best to get to your comments. And if you have a comment that doesn't get answered, please go ahead and contact us. You can find our information on the website. You can call City Hall. You can email me, and we can get all of this. We can get your questions answered. So the first question that we
Becky, can I just jump in to say I did see one comment that said you went way too fast. Can you repeat that? Again, I would rather leave it to questions at this point so that I know exactly what maybe I went too fast over, and try and answer that a little more slowly. But I will also take a little time at the end to sort of reiterate everything we've talked about again. So thank you very much for your comment, and we certainly appreciate that, and we will do our best. So please go ahead, Becky.
I also want to let you know that all of this recording will be on our website and available tomorrow for you to go back and watch and slow it down if you need to. So the first question that we're going to ask is, I see a lot of new warehouse construction. How much revenue are they generating, and why are there so many TIFs, and how long until we see tax revenue from them?
Okay, so a number of those warehouses, we have done a report, and the newest warehouses over in Hazelwood Logistics Center over there at McDonald and Lindbergh, that has generated, and if you hold on one second, I've got the report. Also, if you go to our website, you'll see a summary of all of these reports. But overall, I believe it's generated well over $1 million just in Hazelwood Logistics Center. Aviator has also generated some good business license fees. It's hard for us to know utility tax because we don't know businesses' utilities. But I would say it's starting to generate well over $1 million a year from those warehouses. In terms of the TIF abatements, each one's a little different. when we brought in Aviator back in 2008 to replace the Ford plant, they did get a 25-year tax abatement, 10 years at 100%, and 15 years at 50%. But then when the next industrial park came in, we gave them 18 years of tax abatement, 10 years at 100%, 8 years at 50%. The newest industrial park down at the mall, they also have 18 years of tax abatement, but they're paying a pilot fee. The new projects in Park 370 are also paying a pilot fee. So we have continued to do less and less abatements as we've had more and more success.
All right, the next question is, how long is Hazelwood locked into the agreement with Robertson?
The contract did not have an ending date. The city terminated it, and so the contract is not in effect anymore. Robertson has sued the city over that. And that's in litigation right now. So I really can't discuss litigation associated with that. That's the best answer that I can give you.
So there's a couple of questions along the same theme. You know, what happens if the NID fails, or if the quarter-cent fire sales tax is not passed? What are alternate options that Hazelwood might pursue?
So
and then this person was asking specific options, but we'll keep it general right now.
Okay, I got you. No, and that's a great question. If the voters do not approve the NID or the fire sales tax, then obviously we are going to have to continue to study this problem. The city's budget problems are not going to go away. We have what we call a structural deficit. And so we're going to have to significantly reduce our budget and our services or develop another solution. What I can say is, if this is not approved by the voters, that the city remains committed to finding a long-term solution to this problem that ensures residents continue to receive high-quality services. We are going to continue to work towards that solution, as we've been doing since we first identified this problem in 2014.
Okay. Are TIFs free loans to all the businesses?
They are not. We actually have two different types of incentives. One of which is a tax abatement, often done through a TIF, in which what happens is the property value is frozen. As the property value goes up because there's new buildings or improved buildings, the difference, the tax increment, that's why it's called TIF, or tax increment financing, is used to pay off bonds that were issued towards the cost of that project. So it is a form of tax abatement. Or we also provide tax abatements through what we call Chapter 100, because it's based on Chapter 100 of the state statutes, or Chapter 353, which provides for a certain level of tax abatement. The second part of our economic development program are loans. We have a dedicated half-cent economic development sales tax that generates roughly $1.6 million a year. We estimate it's going to be closer to $1.2 million this year because of the reduced sales because of the pandemic. And that money is used for providing all of our economic development program, including loans. And so we will offer either interest-bearing loans or non-interest-bearing loans, most of which become forgivable loans if a company brings in a certain number of jobs and at a certain minimum payroll, which again has to be at least 80% of the countywide average. That's why we're not funding minimum wage jobs here. They're not even close to minimum wage jobs. They got to be at least $19 an hour jobs in order to qualify for a loan. And then if a company does, and most of the time what we have found is, after we give them a loan and they grow, and they actually have more jobs than the minimum that they have to have. The wages are higher as they continue to grow and try and retain their employees as well. And so we're usually getting even better than the minimum number of jobs and wages that we use our loan program for. But if they don't, then they don't get loan forgiveness and they have to pay us back. And like I said, we've had 2 projects already, unfortunately, where that's happened, but we've been paid back with interest.
And I want to make a quick comment about the economic development program that we have. And, you know, as Matt said, that it is funded through an economic development sales tax. And this money, per state law, is strictly dedicated to economic development tax, or to economic development programs. We cannot take that money and use it in other ways. So it is there strictly to help us grow our economic development program and help us grow our businesses.
And you can tell we love what we do. We're very excited about what we do. So I'm going to add one more thing. We cannot use that for retail development. So trust me, everyone on the city council and the city manager understands we want a grocery store. There's a whole lot of reasons why we don't have a grocery store, but one of them is we can't go out and use our program to try and draw a grocery store in. So we are not allowed to use it for retail purposes. And again, that's state law.
All right, so we have another question. How many times have the Robertson area voters approved an increase since the beginning of the contract?
It is my understanding, I've only been here for one of them, but it's my understanding that there were 3 separate tax initiatives and they all were passed over the last 25 years.
All right, so we've got a couple questions that are, again, similar. For those of us who live in the Robertson area but do not like or want to be served by Robertson, what are our options? We didn't know anything about this before moving into the area and would prefer to be served by the Hazelwood Fire Department according to the terms of the letters the city sent us a couple of years ago.
Right, that's a great question, and I will go back to my answer that if this doesn't pass, we believe this is the most fair solution based on what we have. If this doesn't pass, then we will continue to work on this towards an equitable solution that also continues to provide a high quality of services. What that will be is not something that the city has considered at this time, but we will continue to work on
it. Again, please take this opportunity to send us questions and comments. We'll read your comments out so everybody can hear your comments too. You know, and again, you can find all this information up on our website, which is there on your screen, and then we'll be able to get the recording of this this webinar, the Zoom meeting, out on our website tomorrow. And for those of you who missed the meeting for whatever reason, or for those of you that want to come back and review it, you can find it on our website. All right, we have another question. For some residents that are renting homes or apartments in Hazelwood that may experience evictions upcoming on September funds, are there funds or a budget that can be used to assist our residents as a result of losing income due to COVID-19 layoffs?
I know the federal government is looking at a lot of those issues. They've already done a very significant stimulus, and I know that there's debate going on in Washington about other stimulus options. But part of that decision of the federal government was that they were going to dole some of that stimulus money out to the state, some of that out to the counties if they were large enough. For whatever reason, the federal government decided not to include municipalities in that program. So we have not gotten one dime of stimulus money or COVID money, if you will. So we, like you in your homes, you at your jobs, we're struggling to get through day by day, keeping everybody safe, continuing to provide services. But we don't really have any extra money. We're just trying to hold on to what we have. But that is a great question. Thank you.
So another question is, why were new home buyers not informed of the Robertson agreement that was made when they purchased their home?
I don't know the answer to that question, other than that would be the responsibility of either the landlords or the real estate agent. But I think since it's been going on since the contract was signed in 1995, I think it's kind of just become more of I guess a common knowledge. But certainly we wouldn't know when you're buying your house or renting a house or apartment, and it wouldn't be our place necessarily to tell people. So I can't answer the question any better than that.
All right. Will there be more layoffs and cuts if the NID and sales tax do not pass?
We will continue to look for solutions. If we don't come up with additional revenues, then that is going to be inevitable, I'm afraid.
All right.
And since we've already cut most of our parks and recs and some of our streets and other programs, it's going to have to be police and fire, and that's not a threat. That's not. It's again, we would encourage you to go to our website and look at our budget. You can see what our budget is. Fire payments and fire department takes up 40% of our budget. Police takes up, I believe, 25%, if I remember my number correctly off the top of my head. Or maybe even 30%. So when 70% of your budget's there, we're going to have to start to affect that, I'm afraid to say.
What do current Hazelwood residents need to know to make sure we will no longer have this burden on our city?
Obviously, we would encourage you to continue to come to even if it's virtually to city council meetings. Look at the city's website. I think our newest newsletter is going to be going out next week, and we have some information on that. We're going to try and do at least a quarterly, and hopefully even 6 times a year, an e-newsletter. So we would ask you to go to our website and sign in, and you can get the newsletter automatically emailed to you. So that would be a great way. Certainly keeping up with the media, and more than anything, please do not hesitate to contact us. Send us an email, give us a phone call, and we will be happy to give you information as to what's going on. I'm sure you'll continue to hear additional discussions after the election next week.
All right. As salaries for Robertson Fire District increase, will you keep coming back asking for more taxes?
First of all, we don't have any say over what Robertson's pays their employees. But what the NID does is it makes up the difference between what Hazelwood would cost to provide that area and what Robertson charges us. So if the tax rate goes up, in Robertson, or the cities goes down, then there's going to be a higher rate for the NID. Conversely, if the city's rate goes up or Robertson's rate goes down, then the amount of the NID rate goes down as well. So that will be all dependent on what their total tax levy is for whatever purposes that they use, and what the city's cost would be.
Does the city know what the current budget of the Robertson Fire Protection District is?
Yes, last week they emailed us a copy of their budget.
I think we've got some more questions, but we're gonna give it a second to let the computer do its thing and keep up.
Have we had any comments yet that people want to make?
Not yet. A lot of what's coming through, it looks like everything that's coming through are questions right now.
Okay.
So
good. Keep them coming, everybody. Please.
Yeah.
We want to answer your questions.
So here's a question. Should the residents in the Robertson area be concerned about de-annexation and no longer being a part of Hazelwood, but going unincorporated and thus losing all services if the NID fails and the ongoing litigation is lost?
The city has no basis for de-annexing that area. The ability, when the annexation occurred in 1995, there is a 3-year limit by state law before that annexation can be reversed. So the city would have no basis for going in and de-annexing that area. That would be something that the homeowners would have to take a look at if that was something they wanted to do. And de-annexation law is not something I've looked at or discussed with the city attorneys yet, so I don't know a lot about how that would work. But the city could not, and I feel confident in saying on behalf of the mayor and the council, the city is not interested in de-annexing those residents.
If the sales tax is passed, Robertson has a history of raising rates and unusually high rates. Will passing this sales tax stop Hazelwood from pursuing ways to sever ties with Robertson?
I want to make it very clear, the city is looking for a solution. The city is not necessarily looking to sever ties. We've not had any success in the past, which is why the city took the action that it took in 2017. And still we are continuing to work with them. So I want to make that very clear. If increasing the sales tax were to occur, that certainly is a help, but less than $1 million a year is not going to solve our $4.5 million budget problem that it currently is. And I think that will get less over time, because it's assuming one-time loss of revenues because of COVID, but it's still a very significant deficit, and that in and of itself is not going to be sufficient to balance our budget.
All right, so can you just fire the Robertson Fire Department and say there's no money to pay them?
Again, we're in court over that exact issue, so that's the best answer that I can give you.
So again, I'm going to reiterate, please send us your questions, any comments that you have. You can see our website here, www.hazelwoodmo.org/fire service. And if you have a question that doesn't get answered tonight, or if you have a question that pops up tomorrow morning or over the weekend, please send us that question. Send us an email. You can send us you can email us at fireservice@hazelwoodmo.org, and we'll get your email and get you an answer to the best of our ability. So we have a comment that says, so you want the residents in the RFPD, so the Robertson service area, to vote for an open-ended contract with no limits on tax increases and no end date like Hazelwood did.
And we appreciate that comment. I do want to remind the commenter that it is a 20-year term, and the rate cannot change by more than 25% in that time frame.
Is this overpricing by Robertson why their station is so big and beautiful compared to our own?
Again, I can't speak for how Robertson chooses to set their rates and spend their money. Their elected officials are voted in by the residents of Hazelwood and Bridgeton, and they make whatever they determine to be the best decisions that they can for their residents and for their employees, just like the city does within the confines of what we have.
So is it possible that every year the cost of the NID could increase?
It would depend on, as I said, what Robertson does with its rates, what Hazelwood does with its rates. It certainly could go up, but also could go down in any given year. But it cannot change by more than 25% at any time during that 20-year period.
We have a few more minutes for questions and comments, so please send us your questions and your comments. We'd love to hear them. So here's another question. All Hazelwood residents in the Robertson district have talked and would prefer to be served by Hazelwood Fire. Is there a way for us to vote to separate from Bridgeton, who only has Robertson as an option?
Each governmental agency is its own organization, its own corporate organization. It's actually what we call it, it's a corporation. So, and they all have their own boundaries. So our boundaries are what we are as the City of Hazelwood. Robertson has their own boundaries, which include some of Hazelwood, some of Bridgeton. And those boundaries are set by when the districts are created or through what we call annexation. That's how Hazelwood grew up to the west side of Hottershell Road, for example. And so, and so they may overlap, but their own each unique jurisdictional boundaries. So obviously, if depending on what happens with our election, if there's some interest at looking at changing how it is, then I think we're going to have to listen to the questions and the concerns and the desires of the residents, as we do the residents in every part of Hazelwood.
Somebody was, and I think this is more of a comment and not really a question. Well, there is a little bit of a question in here. So why are you so sure that the residents want Robertson versus Hazelwood fire protection? We signed a petition last year to bring it to the ballot for vote, excuse me. Why did that not happen?
I certainly would encourage you to talk to Robertson. That petition was submitted. The Robertson Board of Directors chose to not put that on the ballot. But I'm not going to speak for them as to why they chose not to put that on the ballot. In terms of the comment or question about so sure, I don't think the city is sure about anything. We know that we are looking for a solution to the budget problems, and we feel like this is the most equitable solution for all of the reasons that we stated. And depending on what happens next Tuesday, then we will have to continue to explore solutions to this issue, because the budget problems are not going to go away. That again, if you go back and read any of our budgets, you will see the long-term trend of deficits that we've had, that we've been able to limit through one-time revenues and through temporary budget reductions. But even that's not enough anymore. And again, I know I throw a lot of numbers out. It's what I do for a living. Please also make an appointment to see me or Becky, and we would be happy to go through our budgets with you and our spreadsheets with you if you have any interest. I have found that, including my wife, very few people have the kind of interest in it that Becky and I do. So, but we would love an opportunity to share our expertise with you. But thank you for your comment.
And just as a question, a clarifying question real quick, when you say one-time revenues, what do you mean by that?
Most of our revenues come in on a recurring basis. Every month we get sales tax. Several times a year we get property tax, and we know that's going to come in. But sometimes the city gets revenues that do not repeat themselves, which is why we call them one-time revenues. Sometime, one time they were an insurance payment. Another time it was bond fees. I'm trying to think of the different ones that we've had. We've gotten a refund on our liability insurance, but we can't count on that from a budgetary standpoint and have expenses based on the assumption that these revenues that don't repeat are going to come in.
All right. So how will this tax benefit or harm the city of Hazelwood?
I'm sorry, but I'm not sure I understand the question.
So the question is, how will this tax, I'm guessing either the NID or the sales tax, benefit or harm the city of Hazelwood?
Well, you know, clearly, if the NID does pass, that's going to generate significant revenues. Probably, you know, come close to help covering the costs that we have directly paying for Robertson, which will also free up some money for some other services. If the sales tax passes, again, that's going to generate about 780,000 per year, and that we can use that to continue to try and protect as many services as we can. If neither of those pass, then I think the city is going to have to look at another revenue solution or some way of reducing our expenses.
Will you share Robertson's budget on the city website?
It's a public document. We'd be happy to do so.
So here's a question with a little bit of a preface. I am inclined to vote no on NID, not because I want the city to have a shortfall, but because I want to say no to and reject Robertson. But is that even possible now?
Again, I think we're going to have to study any and all of our options. This is not an option. And again, we're in litigation over that exact option. We will continue to study this and let the residents know. And again, more than anything, it's a comment, and we appreciate your comment, and thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Very similar to that is, will a vote for the tax increase be interpreted as a vote to stay in Robertson's district? I understand voting for the good of the city, but I don't want it interpreted as a vote in favor of Robertson.
I don't know what conclusion the voters will draw from the results of the election. I think that the city will see this as a way of providing some level of funding security for us that allows us to continue to pay those costs that we have incurred, and to continue to maintain these high quality services that the residents in that area have come to expect, and rightfully so.
All right, we have another comment, and I just want to point out that we have a few minutes left, so go ahead and get your final comments and questions in. Again, if we don't get to your question tonight, we'll try to get it answered on our website in the next day or two. And please, if you have another question that comes up, again, send us an email at fireservice@hazelwoodmo.org. So this comment is, thank you for the information. However, it is not right for one governmental agency to raise taxes and provide raises to their employees at the detriment of the other agency, which has to freeze salaries and lay off employees.
Well, again, thank you for your comment. We appreciate that. We want to hear all comments on this issue.
So, I think we have a few more questions, and we'll wrap up. It is evident that we must find a way to generate revenue. I'm inclined to vote yes to help, but knowing that every year it can go up makes me leery. Why should residents increasingly pay for what seems to be a bad decision by Hazelwood years ago? Why can't you assure us of a cap?
The cap is 25% of the initial rate, so there is a cap, which would be what, I didn't even calculate that, not quite, what, about 35 cents, I guess. So there is a cap. In terms of the agreement, again, I wasn't here in 1995. It has been my understanding from talking to numerous people who were here in 1995 that the city went through the annexation petition. There were constant lawsuits over it. This is the agreement that was offered at the time that was going to resolve the litigation, because both Hazelwood and Robertson was engaging in very large expenses in this litigation. This was seen as a solution that everybody could accept to stop all the litigation, allow these people to be annexed into Hazelwood, because again, all three annexation votes were approved by the voters. The voters wanted to be in Hazelwood. Hazelwood wanted those residents who wanted to be in Hazelwood to be in Hazelwood. And so this was the only deal we had available to us to stop the litigation instead of going on to some unknown amount of time and unknown amount of expense.
All right, so I think that's all we have for tonight.
Okay. Mayor, do you want to make any closing comments?
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for participating. There was a lot of good comments made here, a lot of good questions. A lot of misinformation had been being spread around a little bit, and hopefully Matt was able to correct some of the residents that might have had some questions. As far as the initiative petition that was put together by the residents a while back, and Robertson took no action, that's something that was initiative petition by the residents. And if it was to resurface, the residents would have to do that. The city is taking the approach that if the residents, you know, it's a hard situation out there to know what the next steps are. The residents showed us that they didn't have the interest to proceed with the initiative petition by removing signatures back a year ago. So that is no longer a priority of the city to move forward with, and we are looking at all other options to try and make things work out with negotiations with the City of Hazelwood. But I thought I'd clarify that was an initiative petition by the residents, and at this point in time, the city has no interest of moving forward with that because the residents had removed their signatures from that petition also. Other than that, I appreciate all the information that Matt has put out there and the work that the City of Hazelwood is doing, and appreciate the negotiations that Robertson is trying to work out with the City of Hazelwood to try and solve this problem. It is a very tricky issue legally, and it's hard to understand for our residents when we put issues like this on the ballot, and we appreciate all of your understanding in this rough time. So thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for participating.